So tell me a little bit more about Grandpa's life.
Grandpa Ben?
Yes, my grandpa.
He was a very interesting man. One of the most ethical people you ever would want to meet. Ethical to a point of self-deprivation. He was a letter carrier, and he liked walking a beat, and he liked talking to people on in the area that he was responsible for. He was a very gregarious man. He charmed everybody who met him. He was intelligent. He had to help there. And then his own family. When Bobby Kennedy became Attorney General, he lifted the fees and lifted the political noose that they had around the post office at that time. You could not be a supervisor if you didn't bribe somebody, and my father would never do that. And my father got among the top scores of the test, and so he was permitted to become a supervisor in the post office. He was very proud of the post office. He thought it was doing a wonderful job, which it was. But he didn't stay in that position because he was proud of it. He stayed in that position because it had so many benefits. And it was secure. Once you were in, you were in.
And Grandpa's parents were born here, or they moved here?
No, his parents moved here from Vilna, I think. My grandma Sonia had a family who had orchards in Vilna, just outside of Vilna. They came from Minsk and lived in Vilna at the time, which was a mecca of culture for Jews till the Holocaust. And my grandparents tried to bring their parents over, and they came and they hated it. So they went back to Vilna, and they were all killed. So that was not a happy story. Let's see, my father's father, David, Zadie Dave, was a tailor and a very, very fervent member of the union. My grandma Sonia, who was Zadie Dave's wife, who died very young, and I'm not sure of what. I think somebody messed up in the hospital when she was having a routine something or other. Anyway, he also remarried a few years later to somebody we rarely ever saw. It was not a close-knit family at that point. Ben was the oldest. Then came Millie. Then came Molly. Then came Ann. Then came Ann, then came Molly. Ann always said she was Eagle Avenue. They lived, I don't know, a trolley car ride away. So they met because they were in the same youth group, and they had a gigantic group of friends. We have photos of the gatherings of the Young Circle League. they were called the amigos. They called themselves the amigos, Greek for friends. My father, Ben, and my mother, Rose, they were always in love with each other, always respectful of each other. So, my father and mother had 3 daughters. I'm the eldest, Masha. Then we had a middle daughter, Sarah, and the youngest, Sonny. So we lived in a mixed neighborhood in the southeast Bronx, Hunts Point section, and we rented the ground floor of a 2-story private house, and our neighbors were pleasant, and New York was very easy to live in and grow up in those days. He had a lot of hobbies. Codes were a part of his hobby, and he was a cryptographer in the Army for 18 months, in the Air Corps actually, and he was in India, stationed in India, and he sent home the most amazing photographs, and I think that period of time was a very happy one for him. It was horrible for my mother, just horrible.
What do you mean?
Well, we found some of their letters. She would write, "Can't he send home more money? She has 23 cents left to feed the family till Friday," and this was Tuesday. I didn't know anything about this, and I was her confidant in many ways. My mother and I were companions to each other. Why my mother never went to work outside the home, I don't know. She had a lot of skills, and she was an organizer, a neighborhood organizer, and a school mother, and she was very bright and remarkable. Everybody who met her just loved her. And when she died, it was a riveting blow to my father. And I don't know if he really ever recovered from it. We lived with my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side. Zaidi, Mesha, and Bubby were Orthodox. And my father was an agnostic. So he thought that there was nothing worse than organized religion. And you'd think that it would be a problem because my grandparents insisted that we keep a kosher home. He never disrespected or argued with my grandparents. Now, my father did not go to synagogue or observe the holidays, but he didn't bring unkosher food into the house. And my father, who was very opinionated and very bombastic and very full of himself, and he was a respectful and loving son-in-law. And he adored my mother.
How did they meet?
They both were youth activists for Social Democrats in the 1920s. They were union organizers, and they belonged to an organization called the Workmen's Circle, which if you ask my father what his religion was, he would say Workmen's Circle. It's a fraternal Jewish organization that performed a lot of beneficial activities with Jewish immigrants, with Jews all over the world. Brilliant people, a notable organization. The Jewish Daily Forward is a product of the Workmen's Circle. Well, he was a Yiddishist. He wanted to revive Yiddish. Because Israel was outlawing Yiddish, the Workmen's Circle had Yiddish schools all over the country, particularly in New York. But once I started going to school, and Yiddish was not my first language. It was mainly English, but I did converse with my grandparents. Well, my grandfather said his prayers, and he was very Orthodox. When we prepared for Passover, we stripped the pantry of all food. We took down the dishes and changed them for the Passover. And my grandfather made wine in the basement. And the smell of it was wonderful. He was busy at it all year round. We were a non-drinking family, so it was a treat to have our wine. Next to the wine cellar downstairs was his photo shop. And he was an excellent photographer. Excellent. He was a wonderful photographer. He had a terrific eye. I think he started getting into photography when he was a teenager, and would take pictures to report meetings and things that were going on. Yeah, I remember having 3 sets of trays, the developer fluid, and you dip them in one tray and turn them over and dip them in the next tray. And that was also something I loved being involved with as a little girl. It was a special time for my father and me. When she died from the projects. The landlord wanted the apartment for his children, and I guess in those days it may have been legal. It didn't happen.
So you lived there for 17 years, and then the summer that your mother got sick, you were evicted?
Right.
And then you moved to the projects?
Right. Baychester in the North Bronx. It really wasn't bad. Coming from the house that we came from, it was very modern. It was very clean at that time. It was new. After she died, a couple of years after she died, my father married a lovely woman, Gussie Winokur. He and Gussie had a very, very good marriage and a very good life together. And because she did work and brought in her additional income, they started having a life outside the tenement. And I'm so sorry that I never did what you're doing here. I never sat down with them and asked them about their lives. And I did with my father. And we set up a tape recorder for him, and he recorded about 7 minutes and then stopped and never went back to it. So we didn't really find out much. And I really regret that. I'll tell you a story. Toad was sitting on his front porch. Frog came along and said, "What's the matter, Toad? You're looking sad." "Yes," said Toad. This is my sad time of day. It's the time when I wait for the mail to come. It always makes me very unhappy. Why is that? asked Frog. 'Cause I never get any mail, said Toad. Not ever? asked Frog. No, never, said Toad. No one has ever sent me a letter. Every day my mailbox is empty. That's why waiting for the mail is very sad for me. Frog and Toad sat on the porch, feeling sad together. And then Frog suddenly gets up, dashes home, and writes a letter. Frog ran out of his house. He saw a snail that he knew. Snail, said Frog, please take this letter to Toad's house and put it in his mailbox. Sure, said the snail, right away. Then Frog ran back to Toad's house. Toad was in bed taking a nap. Toad, said Frog, I think you should get up and wait for the mail some more. Nope, said Toad, I'm tired of waiting for the mail. Frog looked out of the window at Toad's mailbox. Snail wasn't there yet. Toad, said Frog, you never know when someone may send you a letter. Oh no, said Toad. I don't think anyone will ever send me a letter. Frog looked out of the window again. Don't be silly, said Toad. Nobody's ever sent me one, nobody ever will. Frog, why do you keep looking out the window? Because now I'm waiting for the mail, said Frog. But there will not be any, said Toad. Oh, yes, there will, said Frog, 'cause I have sent you a letter. You have, said Toad. What did you write in the letter? Frog said, I wrote, Dear Toad, I am glad that you are my best friend. Your best friend, Frog. Oh, said Toad, that makes a very good letter. Then Frog and Toad went out onto the front porch to wait for the mail. They sat there feeling happy together. Frog and Toad waited a long time. 4 days later, the snail got to Toad's house and gave him the letter from Frog. Toad was very pleased to have it.
Because you were pretty close with your mom, right?
Yeah. She was my best friend. She was a wonderful woman, and she sang to us. And I'm going to have to practice one.
Okay.
Because with my voice the way it is now, it would probably come out as a croak.
Well, what were some of the names of the songs?
Oh, my babby. My curly-headed babby, let's sit beneath the stars and sing a song to the moon. Oh, my babby, my curly-headed babby. I used to have a good voice. So, lula-lula, lula-lula, bye-bye. Do you want the moon to play with, or the stars to run away with? They'll be yours if you don't cry. Anyway, that one I remember very well. And there's another one.
So you have a recording somewhere of your mom singing, right? She made a record?
Yeah. I don't have any record of her, really.
So I'd love to welcome everyone to the event this evening. Thank you so much for joining us both here in person as well as online. The event tonight is called Archival Stories, How Contemporary Design Can Illuminate the Past. I'm Lisa Marie Patzer, and I'm joined here by Deb Rudman and Chase Dougherty. So Chase Dougherty is the Gretchen Hupfel. Chase organizes wonderful exhibitions featuring emerging and middle career artists within the Mid-Atlantic region. She holds an MFA in Museum Exhibition Planning and Design, as well as a BA in Art History. We are honored to have you here this evening.
Thank you.
So this event is being hosted by Termite Collective, which is an experimental community-oriented media-making group of artists here in Philadelphia. And the event is part of Design Philadelphia's 20th Anniversary Festival. So welcome, all of you, and I'll turn it over to Chase.
Fantastic, thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's really nice to be here and in this such intimate setting. So, very happy to be here. So we are sitting amongst the new body of work by Lisa Marie Patzer in collaboration with Debbie. And so we're going to just talk a little bit about how this all came to be. So, Chromatographic Landscapes is a new series of work by multimedia artist Lisa Marie Patzer, and this is drawing from thousands of photographic slides by Ben Kabakow, your grandfather, Debbie's grandfather. So generously provided by Debbie herself, the slides became the material culture that is the basis of each of the works in the show that you see here. So we are spanning generations and various modes of technology, and this exhibition really investigates the ephemeral concepts of memory and collection through the very real acts of collecting, clipping, editing, and composing in an entirely new visual media. So we are very lucky to have both ends of this collaboration in this conversation. And I really want to start off by talking where the images all start. You know, we got to see this lovely video and learn a little bit more about Ben, but I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about your grandfather and also how you came to have these images themselves.
So as described in the video, you know, my grandfather was a lifelong postal worker, and very proud of it, and that was carried forward through his daughter, my mother, to me. We were always, you never cross a picket line, very much, union organizers, my grandparents, and he had very strong beliefs and opinions, and encouraged everyone in his family to have their own strong beliefs and opinions. He loved to argue. But he really, what I most remember about him is that he was just always taking pictures and always having slideshows. And when the family would get together, we would have a slideshow. And, I didn't love it as much when I was a kid. But that was, family entertainment. There were also photo albums, but, he really liked the quality of the light, and then he also liked to kind of be the MC, and he would, lead the group in, his curation of the images. And I think that was a really big influence on me.
How frequently did he do that?
It was a lot. I mean,
really?
We would all be piled in like this in my grandparents' living room, and he'd be sitting in the big chair, and that would be the way that we would, and we would have a conversation around things, and because then he got to travel a lot later in life, so it opened up, a wider world. This was, before the internet,
Yeah. Absolutely. So you are now the steward of these images.
Yeah.
You are now the owner, as well as other recordings that we have seen in the exhibition. So how does it make you feel to have them included in this new version that Lisa Marie has created here? So
Yeah,
I'm sure it's so different.
Have loved working with Lisa Marie and being included in this and seeing what and I think my grandfather would love it too. just having his work seen in a different way. And he was very much interested in the technologies that changed it over the years and was always learning something new. Like, he didn't have a higher education, but he was always learning, and learned how to use a computer before I did. And to see, you know, the images exhibited in this way, and it just makes it, you know, current and being able to be seen in a different light, like, it just makes it bigger. And he was also very organized about how he kept things, and when, you know, I was taking it on, it was kind of a big mess, so it was like a lot of going through it. So I love also that that's been a part of the process, is, you know, going through it in a new way, like you were saying.
So how many images do you think there are in total?
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were thousands, but yeah, I mean, in one carousel, in that small carousel that we're going to be looking at later, there's 100, but usually, like, I think the regular carousel slide projectors that, I mean, I have one still working that has like 140 in it, and then there's probably, you know, 20 carousels that he's put together of his own curated kinds of trips and artworks and family, friends, the way he had it, you know, divided. But then there was just duplicates and test rolls and ones that he didn't like as much as others that he didn't want to exhibit, you know, so, but had, you know.
But kept.
Yeah, kept all of it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I took one slide out of the show because it was marked overexposed. You know, so, I mean, but kept it.
Just small editing, small. All right, well, so turning to Lisa Marie, would you mind just telling our audience a little bit more about your work as an artist and your practice, and just leading into all of this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yeah, I'm trained as a digital media artist, and you know, early on in my practice, I did a lot of large-scale video installation and interactive narratives, and you know, the kind of interest in working with archival material really started in 2018 when I found a collection of 8mm films in a consignment store, and you know, from the containers and about the gentleman who had shot the films, I could tell that he lived in South Philadelphia, and that a lot of the films had been developed in the 1950s, and most of the content of the films were family occasions, birthdays, holidays, trips to the beach, etc. So, finding this like trove of 8mm films, in a consignment store just opened up all these questions for me. So conceptually, I'm really interested in, the history of technology and how it changes both the ways that we produce culture as well as how we tell stories. And so I started to think about, okay, 8mm film, like what's the background and what's the history of 8mm film, and how, basically through research learned that, in the mid-1900s, it really opened up the possibility for just the average consumer to be able to create their own home movies for the first time. It was very affordable and fairly easy to use. So then, I started to think about, okay, so here are these 8mm films that, this gentleman went to a lot of trouble documenting and taking notes about, and they ended up in a consignment store. So, just like what's happening with these like precious memories that, they're not being necessarily archived in the same way that digital media is. So I started to just, really kind of question the idea of domestic archives and domestic memory, and how contemporary computer technology would interpret these kind of ephemeral images that were starting to decay and starting to kind of change and morph with time. so that was 2018, and 6 years later, I am still kind of like interested in all those ideas, and just really spent kind of the past 6 years kind of looking at how contemporary digital technology is allowing for these memories to be preserved in different ways and kind of interpreted and cataloged. So that's kind of the backstory of how I became interested in this. Yeah.
So I think especially to the programs that you're talking about and just how you're using the technology, because it's really interesting how you are talking about color. And do you want to go in a little bit more into that? I know that it's such a process, and it seems it's a really iterative process for you as well too. I don't know if it's too tech heavy, but it's really interesting, I think, to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So yeah, when I first was offered by Debbie to be able to kind of dive into Ben's slide collection, I was not sure what I was going to do with it, to be totally honest, and just it was slightly different than the 8mm films because with the film it's like there's a lot of still images of the same thing. So, but with the slide collection, it was like most of the images were of different subject matter. And so, my first attempt at kind of digesting all the material was really just to spend some time with it. And I was inspired by the notes that Ben left with the slides. So there were a lot of sheets of paper, and each slide had a lot of little details on them. And so he had his own way of kind of cataloging, then a short little phrase that was kind of describing the content of the image.
Wow.
So I kind of started there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use the same approach as I look through all these slides. And so I would look at a slide, and I would be like, okay, this is going to go into this pile that's based off of this kind of large category of maybe buildings or animals or landscapes. And then, so as I was doing this over time, I became very aware of kind of my own personal bias towards the content of the slides, and realizing that I was having a very kind of strong positive association with things that I had a memory that was related to, or that I could recognize the location or the object. And it was almost, it was uncomfortable that I was having such a strong reaction to certain slides and not others. And so I realized I wanted to use one of these many digital tools that I had been learning about to kind of remove my own biases from the selection process.
Yeah.
So once I decided that I was no longer going to choose which slides to use, and I was just going to use pretty much all of them, it made the process so much easier. And I just started scanning and not really classifying or categorizing them so much, and decided to really focus on color. So rather than subject matter, focus on the fact that these slides had such unique color quality because they were shot on film at a specific time with a certain development process, and some of the colors were starting to shift with the decay of the film. And so that also kind of freed me up from feeling it was no longer so much focused on what the content of the image was, but more on the color quality.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are the colors that we see here in the gallery, are those indicative of those variations that you were finding in the actual film?
Yeah. So basically, after some trial and error, so I scanned all the slides, and then so once they were digitized, I was able to run the collection of slides through different digital processes. And so this was very much like a trial and error. But I found some scripts, very simple Python scripts that because color is something that has been codified in terms of like a computer language. We have RGB codes that, digital scripts can identify in imagery. I was able to like put the full collection of all the slides through a script that basics and put all the images that have that amount of blue into this one folder. And so basically the colors that you see in this work reflect kind of, it's kind of like a data visualization of the quantity of that color in the full archive of slides.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Ben had seen that? That would have been so exciting for him. So obviously there was a lot of content in all of these, and the content was so varying. I guess you did speak a little bit on kind of how you had to take your personal biases out of that. Did you see any certain interests on Ben's part that were really rising, to larger amounts, maybe family or certain places? It seemed...
Yeah, so he traveled quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was impressive to me, like all of the different locations that he traveled to, and so that really struck me. And then his attention to, so like I wasn't even sure, like when there would be like a person in a slide, I was like, I don't know if that's a total stranger or if this is someone that's like traveling with him. So like, I didn't know any of the people. So, but he had this really, just attention to detail and ability to frame a scene that, really evoked almost, sometimes it was like comical. Like there were some of the images were just, be like a person interacting with like a statue of a chicken, and it was like, okay, that's so interesting. Like I really wanted to know more like what was happening in that scene. And then there were images of like, is that bark? I'm not sure. Maybe that's like a really close-up of a tree. And there'd be like 5 images of this like texture. I'm just like, what is that texture? I don't know.
High level of
really interesting
experimentation.
Yes,
it's very interesting.
Yes, totally. So wide range, right? Wide range of subject matter. Yeah.
So I guess this leads into my next question. So you both have a really great familiarity with these images in different ways, and collecting them, editing them, collaging them. So I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit more about those reasons that influence your associations with the slides and how you decided to collage them together. So Debbie, I know that you, when you inherited these slides, you would make your own quote unquote mixtapes. I would love to hear a little bit more about those.
Well, it was great, cool little boxes that had like magnifying glasses, and you could look up through them, and the exhibit has the cool keychain viewers that are much better, actually, that you can, I can't even believe how well you can see the images in those. But, projecting them is one thing, but just like holding them up to your eye is another thing. And then, at first it was, I know it's a huge gift, like to have this. But at the time, it was kind of like, give it to Debbie, she has space for it. We had all these bins, and they were in boxes. And, I just found like another box that was a part of the story that I didn't have for the video that like I included when we were cleaning out some of the bins. So it's just, there's just always, you accumulate stuff and you're always sorting through stuff. And then, my grandfather, it was just so important. In a way, it's partly in honor of him to, and then for the whole family too, to be able to then start sorting for family. So, but as I'm doing that, I'm coming across all these New York images like from the 80s, and was able to donate that to the historical societies, which I think you would really like a lot too. So, well, I'm just guessing, but I think,
it's an informed opinion.
But it's just out of love anyway. So, but then there's just, it was really nice to be able to give some of it away. And not throw it away or not have it like end up, you know, I mean, that was the main thing. Like it's not trash, you know.
Right.
So yeah, just enticing Lisa Marie over to watch a slideshow of Italy when they were going to take a trip there, you know? Or seeing how my grandfather had, you know, labeled certain things. So as I'm searching for different things and putting together in different ways, also coming across like, oh, he's got all these flower images and he's got all these cloud images, and so putting them together, you know, in my own way for fun, you know.
Which seems like it's very honorific of him as well, too, just because that seems like something that he would have enjoyed doing, that he did do. So it seems a nice way to honor him as well.
Well, and I really like projecting, you know, and we have fun like with Termite TV projecting in different ways, you know, moving images and, you know, more experimental and abstract kinds of things. But there's just something really cool about how you can create a whole different environment, like with projections. And yeah, and then seeing them in the light boxes too, just tiny little details that you might have missed in the image. So it's just like new ways of seeing things.
What percentage of the slides do you think that you've gone through? Have you gone through all of them?
Well, I tried to get them going through. Like he did have them labeled pretty well, and then my grandmother's, of course, she would have to take pictures too, because he's just taking pictures all the time. So if they're spending all the time together, and then they're friends too. There's fun pictures of all their friends with all their cameras and all their lenses, you know, taking pictures of each other and everything. You know, it's like a way of being. But we do that now, you know.
Right.
Like we're
Absolutely.
just all, like we're documenting everything every minute now. So it's like, you know, that wasn't really the way then. You know, it's like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. No, there's still piles, but it's whittled down and more organized.
Yeah.
And you know, I was able to at least share out some that I knew my family would want. You know, of here's, you know, he did do some portraits of family too. You know, so we had to do some of those.
Share those out. And so, was it interesting just through organizing? Was it interesting to see the images and I guess the fractions of the images that Lisa Marie used for, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helped me see them in new ways and appreciate them. Yeah, for different qualities.
Do you have a favorite?
Of Lisa Marie's? Well, the vertical light box is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
you know, taking that strip and like how you see, you know, them in strips, like film strips. I like that a lot.
Yeah, this is a very interesting perspective.
And I like the way they're connected, you know, with the wires.
Yes, so that should lead into Lisa Marie. You know, so you also worked with the images, and what came up for you? I mean, this is not, it's a new store of information that you got to delve into, but was there anything new that arose for you, whether it be working with the certain programs or?
Yeah, so there were a couple things that were new about working with this set of archival images. So one was just, this was the first time that I was working with someone's archives that I had a personal relationship with. You know, so like prior to this project, all the archives I had worked with were, you know, either found footage or, you know, I had done some projects with wallpaper samples that were like not at all personal. So like just the stories that like Deb shared through the process and getting to meet some of her extended family through the process, like that was just so special. And so, you know, there was like an added layer of feeling kind of responsible, or like that, just being hyper aware of the fact that this was like really precious, and that I wanted to just kind of honor the fact that it was like, a family archive, and there's a lot of relationships in that. So it added a layer of like potency for me. And that probably helped, push me in terms of, really spending time with the material and getting to a point where I felt comfortable with the approach that I took. And I think also part of what came out of it for me was this, kind of unexpected discovery of what Deb was speaking to with the illuminated art panel. So like first I put together the long landscapes, and then I went back, and knowing that I wanted to have some of the light boxes in the show, I started to look at some of the remnants of like specific images, and thinking in terms of like little vignettes, like there's all these different locations, and you can start to kind of piece together maybe a little scenario. So wanting to put together little sets that we might like, spur someone to tell a story, or spur someone to like work. They just like, it almost evokes other people's memories and associations, and talking about their own past or their own travels. And so that has been, really kind of unexpectedly delightful in the process. Yeah,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Did you have any struggles within the process?
Definitely. I am not a computer scientist, so whenever I venture into using a new, set of code, there's always this like, self-doubt and just like, what am I doing? And so there were a lot of failed attempts. Like I would leave my computer running for like 48 hours expecting to have some amazing result, and there would be like nothing in the folder.
Oh no.
If I had the setting wrong, So that was a little bit of a struggle. And then, I think also just trying to, figure out, again, just like how to really honor the collection as a whole in a way that was new and generative and, kind of my own voice, while also, giving respect and honor to the original photographer and all the family stories that were in it. I think those were the main struggles. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in a previous statement, Lisa Marie, you said, I had been thinking about domestic archives as a unique category of archival material that, when viewed through a socio-political lens, conveyed larger implications of what collective memories are institutionally preserved versus what memories are discarded or allowed to decay. And so I was wondering how you felt this project, if it really validated that statement, if that was something that just revisiting that statement, and how, if this being your kind of first project is this something you'd be interested in continuing?
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously this was very special, but.
Yes, very special. So, I think that my kind of approach shifted a little bit through this process. I think, there are, of course, concerns in terms of, all the analog, film-based memories, whether it's, slides or 8mm films. There really isn't a lot of institutional support out there for people to be able to preserve their memories, or even know how to store certain substrates so that they don't decay, which so that's a whole other thing that I was really interested in when I first found that set of 8mm films. But I think over time, especially working with this collection and realizing that there is this kind of room for almost new stories to emerge, is I'm almost like less concerned about preserving memory for the sake of like factual history, and more about preserving the images to allow stories to emerge. So the fact that like being able to create a new project out of these slides that helped members of Deb's family tell stories that hadn't been told before, and other gallery goers tell stories that they may not have otherwise. I think that's kind of where my focus has shifted, is that like these archival materials can really help us tell our stories that we wouldn't otherwise.
I think it was interesting too when you used the word generative earlier, because that seems like by creating this new visual media, it feels as if it's generating new conversations and new, which feels like an evolution of what I'm sure Ben would have wanted, which feels really, really amazing. So, Deb, as the purveyor of these images, how do you feel? I mean, obviously, you have protected and shared these images with your family members as the steward of them, and so having somebody interpret your family memories, how did that relationship feel?
It was a really great experience over time.
Mm-hmm.
First, the friendship with Lisa Marie, and then giving me the opportunity within the landscapes to have a sample portrait through my mother's stories, because I had, not really been able to listen to those recordings without crying, and now I can listen to them, but I could only read them. So at first I was going to make a video through her storytelling that was just visual and just with text. And Lisa Marie was really encouraging me. No, I think that you can add another layer with the audio and include some of your relationship with your mother. And I was like, no, I shouldn't be in there. And then it was so really encouraging me to explore something that I had really wanted to do something with, and it gave me the focus to be able to do that, and enough time to really be able to process it. And it was just a nice, simple way of having, her story of my grandfather, one perspective, but that, was really important for me to be able to, I don't know about preserve, but just to be able to have that home movie, but the way that it could be exhibited amidst the landscape where, people are looking up and around, and then if you're sitting across from someone, you can both be experiencing it through the headphones, but not alone.
I was going to ask you about the recordings with your mother. You don't have to talk about them if you don't want to. Because they are very beautiful, and I was wondering if at the time you knew how special and important they were going to be, if at that time, or if it was more so just having conversations with her and being able to ask questions.
Yeah, and I had to be pretty deliberate about recording her and finding that time to do it. And then in those last 5 years of her life, having a lot of slideshows, but she just really wanted pictures of herself. So we did that, and I made a little book for her, made her really happy. And my father was a photographer too, and had taken some really nice photographs. No, she wanted to see her sisters too and her family, but no. But yeah, she was a good storyteller, and so and I just she told me she was going to live forever, and she wasn't. So I knew I was going to miss her. So it's just really nice to have this focus. And the joy that she has in children's stories, because she had been a school teacher. She was really encouraged by her father, her education, and she was a teacher and became a teacher of teachers, and then had really focused on children's literature, and so that's why I wanted to include her telling a story, which was also about, the mail. So it's all related.
It's all related. Well, this was really wonderful. For those of you who don't know, and for everybody watching, this was at least a year in the making, but it was more like generations of time, and this is just an incredibly special thing. What a lovely product to have come from that. So I want to thank you both, and I believe we're here for some questions as well too, if anybody had any extra questions.
I have a question about the colors. So all the colors we're seeing now, you didn't do any, or at least any major alterations? That's just the way that they came through from the slides as they were, or?
So the colors are, so I ran the slides through the code that basically would detect how much color was in a certain portion of the slide. And then each image that was in that folder, I converted into a duotone for that color. So yeah, the slides were, realistic colors. So the colors are more of a representation of the amount of that color in the collection. Does that
My
make
cousin.
sense?
Yeah, and actually my question was prompted by the way you were talking about the program and how it maybe detected color. So what we're seeing is just really pretty true to that original detection of what it was.
Yeah, and there were some other colors that weren't as beautiful. So there's a lot of green, which I was, a lot of brown, so I was I left some of the colors unrepresented in the show, but yeah, definitely these were, just the quality of the blue, and, film does decay over time and the colors do shift, and so the reds and the pinks and the blues and the purples seem to hold their value more than some of the other colors, yeah.
But the light boxes are duotones.
Yes, and these,
And these clearly.
yeah.
First categorized and then turned into a duotone based on your color algorithm.
Exactly, yes, you
Yes.
got it. And there are some original slides, so the keychain viewers, I pulled out slides that are represented in the works, so you can, if you want, try to find the piece, a little detail that's in the work, yeah.
Those are very cool. Do we have any other questions?
I'm curious about his original curation. Did you keep those carousels as they were, or is it all now recategorized?
I do have a lot of his original carousels. And the one for Italy is the one that, that
Oh, he
subjectively
curated
submitted to.
Italy.
That was his
He
Italy
showed us
carousel.
very Italy.
Yes. But there were a lot of empty carousels and just boxes of random slides, and so, and then some of the original carousels that he had put together of family and friends, I may have taken some of those out to scan and then send family and friends. So that's why probably there's Grandma's gonna be there. She's gonna, I couldn't get all of the ones that Grandma was in, but, and then some of the friends that they traveled with, that I may not have noticed that they were around the corner down the street, in the picture, so I'm glad that they're showing up in the landscape.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you both. This is really, really nice to hear more about this. So, and congratulations.
Thank you. So we're going to transition, take a few-minute break, and we're going to set up for a slideshow. So if you need a restroom, it's just down end of the pier, and feel free to hang out and join us for a slideshow.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was so fun.
Yeah.
by these slideshows, but where's the people that we know? Like, so these are, friends of my grandfather's, and then, there's some of my grandmother. You'll see some, of my uncle. I snuck one in there of my father and sister, but. Oh yes, we do need to lights, please. But part of the slideshow is, you're supposed to talk through it. So I did mark down what my grandfather put on each of the slides, and we can watch it. We can watch it forwards or backwards. Which would you prefer? Forwards. All right. So I did find this box of slides after I made the video that was marked amigos, and that was one section that I wasn't able to put in the video because I didn't have those slides. And then as I was cleaning out another bin, I found these amigos slides, and then also the Workman Circle slides, which, my grandfather lived in New York City and spent, got away from the city to like Hopewell Junction, New York, like up in the Hudson Valley, right? Yeah. And it's still there, but it's called the Workers Circle, so they are progressing, and it's a lodge, and these slides span from like the late 50s to the late 70s, in somewhat random order. I didn't put them in chronological order. I kind of organized them according to like, here's some sports that he was, documenting. Here's like the lakefront. Here's some of the building in progress, people having dinner together, the nightlife. But then you see like, relationships were formed. My parents met at this camp, when they were camp counselors, because there's also like the children's part of the camp. So this was something that, it was, there's also the second part of the carousel are the amigos, like these friends where they would get together and they would, travel. They would have, this is mostly them having picnics, but they also would, do demonstrations. They would organize around issues. They were a political group. So I will stop talking. And this is the parking lot. At Circle Lodge, 1963. And I was also trying to make selections according to some of the ideas that Lisa Marie, you had infused in my mind of like, something that identifies a particular time period, it's like, so okay, let me make sure I'm going forward here. No, this is backwards, hold on. Okay, so that's the Circle Lodge entrance, and it was Mr. and Mrs. somebody or other, I couldn't read their name, June 1963. And feel free to, chime in with any heckling or remarks. So this was just marked 1965, but when did you ever see Grandma in a t-shirt? I mean, really. She was a very small powerhouse who mostly made her own clothes, but was always impeccably dressed.
You really see how lucky he was with that.
Yeah.
It's so many things.
Yeah, his muse. So that's, all right, so then this one is August 1971. And this is Arts and Crafts at Circle Lodge, September 1963. Cooperation with Schul Movement at Kindering, which is the children's camp, 1963. This is marked Charm Class, Circolage, no date. So this just says signposts, athletic field, Circle Lodge, 1963. So there's all those signposts, but what are they? Oh, okay, I guess they're doing some kind of exercise together. That's, yep, Shuffleboard Ben. So it could have either been Gussie or Don who took that picture, because my Uncle Don got into photography too. That's 1963. Oh, no, this is 1971. Sorry, Shuffleboard Ben, Circle Lodge, August 1971. And there were a number of shots before he got this one. Water skiing, Circle Lodge, 1963. This one's called Buddy, Circle Lodge, 1963. And Girls on Pier, Kindring, 1963. And that's Rachel Beth and Cy, my sister and my father. There was no year marked on it, but it had to have been like before 1961, when my other sister was born. So sometime between 59 and 60. So I didn't have any experience at Circle Lodge. I think my oldest sister was the only one who spent any time there. This is July 1970. And this is the City Committee at Circle Lodge, 1958.
Why didn't you have any experience there?
So when we would visit them at their home when we would come, but not so much in the summer times. But my mother grew up going there. This is Circle Lodge, the Levins of Boston, 1966. And yes, there would always be random shots of rooms. There's no one in them. Although there is someone in the doorway there. Room in Vladek Park, 65. So Vladek Park, I think they called it, Vladek Park I think was one of the first housing developments in New York City, like in the Lower East Side. So I think that was, he put it in quotation marks. Like, I don't know if they called it like Vladek Park at Circle Lodge, but, oh yeah, room in New Vladek Park is the next one. New Vladek Park is what they called it. And that was 1965.
So wait, the lampshade's still wrapped in plastic.
Even today, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been true at my grandmother's house as well. Don't want those kids' fingerprints.
And the whole town.
They were silk.
Yes.
Yeah, they're silk.
So this is the Rec Hall, 1963. And that is, it just says October 1966, so I guess they would really try to milk it, you know, before the weather got cold, right? Hanging out on the lawn, didn't get to do much. So this is just Don and Friend at Circle Lodge, 1963.
Tom looks like you have a lot of friends.
We might have mentioned this before, Deb, but Does this place still exist?
Yeah. And then that's Don with who became his wife. That's Don in the rain there. That happened a lot, I think, at Circle Lodge. And that just says July 1970. It doesn't look that much different. Maybe the, I don't know. And then this is, oh, no, that last one was 63. I think the July 1970 was Don and Lorraine in the, yeah. So like the first one was 63 where he was with a young friend, and then 7 years later is when he met his wife. But this was, so this is a boat lakeside in 66. And, you know, I don't think Grandpa ever had a car, did he? Because they would take like a bus to get there to Circle Lodge.
Need a parking spot, no car.
That's right, for family to come visit. So this is Lakeside. Big crowd. And that's July 1963, it says. That was the children's crib, I called it. This is Rowing on Sylvan Lake, 1963. That is a big boatload. With the fashion, right?
The glasses.
The sailor tops, because you're out there sailing.
Yes.
But the color of the slides, like the red boat, I was like, oh my god, like they are just, you can't get that, the color and the light.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, they're just, what is going on?
You run here.
What did, Jim thought it was a potato race, or she's got an egg and a spoon, or... Yeah. Too far away. This is, no date. Yeah, he really did love baseball too. This is the only baseball shot I've ever seen that he took. Cause, well, I just remembered like he loved the Yankees and hated the Mets. So.
We do too.
Yeah.
We hate the Mets.
Those colors. This is called Gussie and Friends, 1965. He really liked signs, too. He called this Playland for the Small Fry, 1963. So that was the Kindring entrance, 1958. And then this is the Kindring sign in 1971.
The English
Kind
got
of
bigger,
lost,
the Yiddish
yeah,
got smaller.
they lost a lot of the charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just put that in there because he loved signs. And this was the one that was overexposed that I pulled out. This is just, you know, he's, I'm not sure who took this of him in 1970.
How old was he there? I think he would have been 62. 62. That's great. He was a robust individual.
And this is children going to lunch in 1963. And counselor watching kindering.
That's always good. The shoes crack me up. No kid is wearing sneakers. Like, I guess they just didn't exist at the time.
Yeah.
You know, not even Chuck Taylors. And a single kid had even like Chuck Taylor. It's so funny. But those shorts.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
get.
right? Salmon pink. Tight shorts.
And that's back. That's back.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
Yeah,
should I bring
60,
it back?
63.
Like, I'm so for.
Yeah.
I think it looks good personally.
Yeah, really bad.
And that was yeah.
The 70s till the late 60s.
You were allowed.
We were
Not allowed to wear
sneakers.
Sneakers.
Till the
We were
late
not-
si-
No sneakers?
Wasn't until about 68 or 69 that our high school allowed us to wear sneakers.
That's wild. I mean, they learn eventually. You have to wear sneakers on the gym floor, don't you?
Well, you had to have sneakers for the gym.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But you weren't allowed to wear them around.
At school.
Right.
Interesting.
Hmm. For some kind of like discipline or
Just
just.
Just a,
Yes.
Yeah, it took around to 68, 69 when the dress code started. You know, girls, one first of the battle to keep their skirts long, and then they just wore pants.
I would like to see the 2 minutes that led up to that college.
Yeah. I know. What happened? All right, we're halfway through. And then this says Social Hall Site, 1965.
So was this I'm curious about so is this it was Circle Lodge a communal effort? Was that families invested together to build this? Or?
Yeah, I wonder, like, what the setup was, because I mean, they lived in a cooperative building, so
They're
they.
all socialists.
Yeah.
So you would expect that.
well, they were selling bonds. They were trying to get people to buy bonds to raise money.
Was it for the whole?
Everything was a co-op, they all did that.
The co-ops themselves had their own bonds.
One of the signs said to buy bonds so something else would get built.
To build another
Famous
social
signs.
hall, yeah, yes. And then that is, it just said, building the social hall, June 1965.
I imagine he was excited, like invested.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the grand opening. So now this is Mika's, oh, wait a second.
Furs.
Politics didn't quite extend to the foxes.
Night entertainment. More night entertainment. This is the Hanukkah party, 1958. And I think it's just the sign is facing the other way, the slide is not backwards, right?
Yeah.
And this says 1966. It's just singing together, I think. 62, dancing. You know who that looks like?
In the middle there, Al.
It looks like Al, doesn't it?
does.
So they were friends with this guy that ended up being my grandma's fella after my grandfather died. And
She used to say, I knew Al as long as I knew your grandfather. That's great. Al never stays over.
And Grandpa had his eye on him the whole time, too.
Yeah, do not ask, Grandma, okay?
I just love that it's just all from the back. Like, all right, well, one person's looking over. That's my dad and my mom. So this says Amigos Party 1958.
When were they married, your parents? Because that would have been after they were already married. Because you said they met there?
Yeah, they met there as camp counselors when they were teenagers.
Oh, okay.
So this is the year my sister was born. Wait a minute. So it had to have been before. I think they were married then.
Shoot, your mom was very, I remember my mother saying your mother was very young when she got.
Yeah, but 24 or 25.
Oh, okay, so that would have been 57.
And then had Rachel. It was just labeled The Girls. New York City, 1966. So now we're moving back to the city. Oh no, there's still a few more Circle Lodge. But this was the National Association of Postal Supervisors. Some kind of gala for them.
So these were the wives of the postal supervisors?
Or at least the girls. I don't know if some of them were also postal supervisors in '66. What do you think?
Well, his grandma's in there, so is that right?
Yep.
So,
And probably a dress that she made.
yeah.
Which one is your grandma?
In the blue floral.
Oh, yeah.
She used to make sweaters for all her grandchildren, but all her grandchildren towered over her, so she just knew that the sweater had to be big. And she would make these sweaters that were just enormous.
I still have a sweater she made for Mom.
That's
And it has a little label inside made by Gussie Kabakow. So this is the Circle Lodge Entertainment.
very classic.
And the Circle Lodge Band, 1966.
I want to go down there for some of
This is Del Castillo and Orchestra. And then this is the Mandolin Orchestra. In '73.
Mandolins were very in.
Look at the artwork, the reproduction.
Yes. Classy. This is Howard Fry, 68. And then this just said JTL Lecturing, 1965. And the dining hall area in '63. All lining up. And there's
What
this.
town in New York is it?
Hopewell Junction?
Okay.
Sylvan Lake. So this is the Steward and Chefs in Kitchen, 1963. He also had a picture of just the kitchen, but I didn't include that. All right, now here we are, the Amigos group on a lawn in New Jersey. Oh no, wait, this is at Circle Lodge actually still, 1961. Oh man.
And what was the Amicus group?
Young, well they became friends when they were young and stayed friends and were organizers and but they call themselves the Amigos. So this is August 1968 with paper hats against the sun.
Yeah.
Guess you may do. You read the paper, then you make a hat out of it.
That's hilarious.
All right, this is Gussie in the Kitchen, Amigos Party 1959. That is a big pot of something that they're stewing up. I don't know if that's... Harry the Host, 1970. And then this is the Amigos, all good friends, Circle Lodge in 65. And then they're having a lawn party in 70. And then this is gathering in New Jersey in 1970. This is the Pinochle Players.
Went out with that hat.
Yeah, no, that's that.
So this was the welcome cake for the Amigos group. So I guess that's
Jewish socialist tradition.
the Amigos group in August 1971. I don't know where they were going.
You think they rented buses to go up from the city?
They could have chartered, yeah. So this is a Solidarity Day parade, and it looks like it's the mid-70s. Or late 70s.
It would have been pre-79.
Yeah. The Social
Oh my
Democrats.
God, I had that outfit, or something just like that.
Really?
And the same haircut.
That might be you.
It might be, it looks exactly like me at that age.
This is,
Same haircut.
I think it's, yeah, this is earlier. Wait, let's see. No idea
Do you
who
know
that
where
is.
they were protesting?
This is back in New York City.
Oh, but not is it outside the city. I'm listening.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It didn't say. But then this is Workman's Square. I don't know if this was a place where they would gather or was a dedication, because it just...
Doesn't it look like they covered another sign?
Oh, yeah.
Now, were any of these women part of the lady garment workers union?
My grandmother worked for the Ladies Garment Workers Union. And then this is a banquet at the Concord in 1966. Maybe that's better. And a 1962 Amigos party. With my Aunt Sarah. And they're all their pearls. And a 1962. And then this was a Workman's Circle conference in 1958. They're doing a mailing. And this was the social services office for the Workman's Circle. It said it didn't have a date on it, but this said that the actual slide was ansochrome, which I looked it up, and that was between 55 and so sometime between like 55 and 65.
So it's before Kodak.
Yeah. Then this is 1972 New York.
It's so classic.
It's a great shot.
Unfortunately, the small already. So claustrophobic. It's like you're living.
And then this is just labeled the Miller Camper, 1971.
Awesome.
And then we're back in the parking lot. Well, thank you for humoring me.
Thank you.
Where it all started. Slideshows.
I dig it.